Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Enough to Keep Going podcast. This is episode number 412 for November 16th, 2025. Halfway through November here. And I am your host tonight, Talmaster99. With me, as usual, is one Mr. DBQ Hams. DB, how are you?
Oh, doing well. Glad to be here. Glad to sit down finally after a long weekend, talk about some games and some news of the week. And maybe Game Logic is dropping in and out of the call. So we will see what happens.
Yeah. Also, Game Logic is here, but he has disappeared for the moment. I'm sure he'll be back shortly. There he is. Maybe I changed his background.
Game Logic. Background's the same. So.
Oh, is it the same? Okay, I thought it's
hat's still the same. Background's the same.
No, I just I changed some settings on my MacBook Pro here, and because of the wonky way the dock acts when you have dual screens, and so I hit a shortcut which did a completely different thing than it normally does because of the configuration change I made. So it took me back to the previous screen, which was me not in the studio. So
okay. Nice. All right, and I'm gonna start us off on a tangent real quick because I see that you're wearing your blue Superman hat tonight. Do you have a red one, which harkens back to when Superman was split into two beans at one point during the comics? That's a throwback there for you guys.
Yep, going back there, the electric Superman. Yeah,
I didn't think that's the way you were gonna. I thought you were gonna bring up the red costume from the what was it, Red Son of Krypton or whatever, when he it was like a Elseworld, like what if he'd landed in the Soviet Union,
Russia, I think, or something. Yeah. No.
Speaking of, while we're on that tangent, I do want to mention. So, not Mark. I forget who's on Action Comics right now. Mark Waid. But I am not liking Mark Waid's run on Action Comics as much as I think it's Jeff Loeb, who's on Batman Hush 2, which is not really the point. The real point of my segue is can somebody explain why there are two Batman ongoings right now that have two different numbering schemes? We already do this thing in the DC universe where they've done the same thing Marvel has done. They've renumbered these things, but actually in the DC one, it's not necessarily tied to reboots. Whereas in Marvel, it's still tied to reboots. They just arbitrarily started renumbering, and so the Batman, which is called Batman, but on the cover it says Batman Hush 2, is in the 160s. In the new Batman ongoing, which just launched like 2 or 3 months ago, I think it's on issue 3. I forget who the creator is on it. It's another big name. But they're just two ongoings, both titled Batman, both with two different numbering schemes, neither of which match the legacy numbering scheme, which would have Batman like in the thousands now. So that's my comic book segue. My tangent.
Speaking of which, I saw while I was looking through one of my feeds this past week. I think it was Avengers hitting number 800. But it's actually Avengers number 12 because I guess like you mentioned, the way they're numbering now, it's like, wait a minute, it doesn't even make any sense. I'm like, all right, whatever.
Well, in Marvel,
on that.
In Marvel, they do a thing where they will call them both, like, because I guess for the comic book fans who are offended by the new numbering scheme, they still give you the old legacy number. Like it's somewhere findable. I don't know if it's on the cover, but like you can, when you see a Marvel comic, it will have the new numbering, but you will know what it is in legacy numbering. Whereas, it's just crazy.
It's like a star date in Star Trek. They just think of random numbers. All right, let's get focused here. Let's get on with the show here. If you're new to the show, we have 3 segments that we go through. First up is main GX stories, then segment 2, main news headlines, and then finally our round robin, where we kind of just talk about other things that we've been playing this past week. So let's jump into main.
So wait, I'm going to sidetrack us again. I'm going to go back to the Batman piece. So the Batman number 3. So this is a Matt Fraction, formerly at Marvel. But the Robin in this one is Tim Drake versus.
So Damian is there. He's there, but he's not Robin yet.
In the Matt Fraction one, right? So it's happening at a different timeline. I mean, it's a different point in time.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, which is similar to the goofy thing. It's the other publisher now. Now we're talking about Marvel, which is similar to the goofy thing they're doing with Captain America in Marvel, where
Yep.
Captain America is just somewhere in who knows what timeline, right? It's not the old legacy timeline.
It's post 9/11 because the
Yes.
first issue happens after 9/11. Yeah,
Yes.
I've been reading
We
that
think
as well.
we think it's in the 2000 teens, but like there's no, but there's it's nonsensical in relation to anything else that's going on in the Marvel universe. It's just arbitrarily off in its own time thing. They've rebooted Fantastic Four now too, which I guess I haven't seen the Fantastic Four movie yet, but which I assume is to do what they always do, which is to reinvent these characters to make them more mappable to whatever's going on in the MCU.
Yeah, they rebooted that like right around the movie time. Yep.
Right. Yeah.
Anyhow, there's our comic 5 minutes. So
Yes, I was going to say something else, but I'll keep it going. Hello, Ghostface Killer, and yes, hello, Hero Down Under. It's been a couple weeks since I've been on the show, so it's nice to be back. And yes, the FF movie, which is I was going to mention, yeah, it was pretty good. I actually just watched it last night, so I'd recommend it.
So,
Harkins.
So I'm sorry. So can I do? I want to do one more thing. So Nate says, I don't know how y'all have time for comics, and it's an interesting thing because a lot of what we talk, it's relative. A lot of what we talk about on the show, and we're going to talk about it again tonight, is time management in gaming, right? As adults, and when you have kids and a home and a career and yada yada. I have had to make a paradigm shift, which we talked about last week with regards to gaming, but with comic books, I've had to go to orienting myself around series and not around the weekly releases. So now, whereas I used to like flip myself out with anxiety and be like, oh, I didn't read my books this week. Like now like the new poll list is out and I can't keep up. Now I'm just like, no, I'm going to start with 2 series. I'm going to read those series. I'm going to read Batman and Fantastic Four. And if I don't read, like if I miss an issue, it's fine because my rotation now is when I get back to comics, I'm just going to catch up, right, on whatever I've missed instead of being worried about like what's happening week to week. So it's interesting. You have to learn new tactics to keep up with everything, I guess.
fair enough. I'm going to give a shout out to Ghostface Killer in terms of the Absolute universe with DC. Yes, Absolute Batman is great. The annual that just came out last month or the top of this month. I've been following Absolute Superman as well, which I really enjoy. So good.
Yeah, I really don't have time to read comics anymore. Actually, I did sign up for the Marvel Unlimited, which I think someone mentions here about going digital last year.
It's a great way to do it because then you can plow through 12 books in a year, in a week type of thing.
Yeah, actually, I went back in time with my comic reading. I've been reading the was it Mark Texeira Ghost Rider series when he started that series off back in the 90s. So then you catch.
Oh wow, you're back at like Night Stalker's time. Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, what's super funny is my first introduction to Mark Texeira was when they rebooted Jonah Hex as just Hex when he had gotten like time warped into the future or something like that. So it was my first introduction to him and my first introduction to the Jonah Hex character. I was also very surprised coming back to comics that like Mark Texeira was like a thing. I was like because he was a new creator when he did that, and I was like, oh, like guy went on to become like kind of a known name in comics. So it was interesting.
Yes.
Tao is the host, so anybody who feels like we've segued too far into our segues, it's all Tao's fault.
It is my fault. See, I come back and I just derail everything. All right, let's jump into the main GX stories with our first game here that myself and Game Logic have been playing on PC. That is Arc Raiders. I've actually been playing it last couple weeks actually, since I haven't been on, but it's been a while. I wanted to throw it in there. I believe you, Game Logic, had played another extraction shooter last week. I believe it was Breakout Arena. I think it was. So
yeah, Arena Breakout
compare
Infinite,
the two for you,
which is the PC version because Arena Breakout is the mobile one. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I've been having a ton of fun. The second game has kind of been taking over my gameplay time, so I didn't have as much time this week as I did the last couple weeks, or about a week and a half before that. But yeah, just Arc Raiders is really just fun, which is kind of weird to say. Fun extraction shooter, depending on how you're playing. So you've probably seen this in articles and online on YouTube and stuff like that, or whatever, wherever you look at your game stuff. But playing solo, which I've done a little bit. I probably played more in the teams than solo, but playing solo is like it's almost like a different game because the way the game works is that it'll try to match you up with other solo players. So potentially it'll be just like a whole lobby. And I wanted to look back. I don't know, Game Logic or DB, if you know what the total number of players you get in a match are or not. But they try to match you up with just solo.
Yeah, in a match, I'm not sure. For matchmaking, it's trios.
Right.
I think I think this is one I'm playing so many extraction shooters now that now I see news come by and I get confused. I'm like, which one? I think I saw a thing where they're going to introduce a duos mode, or maybe they already have. I think there's a duos mode coming.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I had saw that too this past week. Yeah, they're talking about that. So yeah, when you're in solos, so it's you'll meet other people, and most of the time, like 99% of the time, everybody is actually pretty cool with you. They don't try to kill you, more or less. From what I've seen, I know Game Logic's kind of.
I'm not. I know not everyone is, because I'm one of the ones who are not. I'm coming from Arena Break, and this is going to be interesting. Like if we collectively like start playing more of these, or at least if Tao and I do, because there's a definite thing here for us to kind of unravel as the year goes on of where you're coming from. Because I too have heard and been parts of conversations where people have talked about kind of that Destiny 2 effect of like when you run into people like at random, and you could do emotes in the game and people start working together, right? And you run across a person and you kind of, there's this tense moment, and then somebody says, hey, you want to run together, and people do. And that's because it's interesting in this, because part of that is because the PvP part is those enemies can be more powerful. Whereas I'm coming from extraction shooters where the more dangerous people are I said that wrong. The PvE people can be more dangerous. Whereas I'm coming from an extraction shooter where the PvPers are the things you have to watch out for. And so there is no tolerance, right? There is no patience. There is no willingness to give anybody the benefit of the doubt when it comes to a human player. And that's how I was kind of trained, so yeah, it'll be, whereas I think some of these people are coming from other games, maybe not hardcore extraction shooters, and that leads to more of that kind of peacekeeping approach, to playing the game. I don't know. What have you seen, Tal, from that perspective?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I was kind of thinking too while you're saying that. I was kind of thinking the reverse. So now that I've played this game in solo mode, obviously it's, for me at least, a little more friendly. If I try to do that in other games, see how that kind of works. But I guess the other thing too with this game is there is proximity chat, whatever you're playing solo or with teams. So you always have that. But you like you said, you can do emotes. There's actually it gives you an audible emote when you do your emote and stuff. Like, I'll say, hey, I'm friendly, or there's an enemy over there. It actually says it audibly. It's not just like a thing that pops up on the screen or anything like that. So I think that kind of helps too. So you kind of have that that part of it, and with the voice chat, more or less with the proximity chat, you can kind of tell if someone's being sincere or not. If it's I haven't run into a lot of kids, which is kind of, well, I don't want to say it's kind of weird, but they might not kind of get this kind of shooter because it's a little more slower paced, I guess, than even like Tarkov and stuff like that. Because like you said, you're constantly on the lookout for the AI enemies, because they're pretty strong. Like even the weaker ones, and I'm doing quotes here. They can take you out fairly quickly. Even the small. I think it's the wasps are the weakest ones, but they have that little like shock, like taser thing that they can shoot you with, and you're immobilized for a couple seconds, so they can just take your energy down fairly quickly. And if there's a bunch of them, sometimes there's like 2 or 3 of them, they can take you out pretty quick. So people tend to try to, like I said, that I've seen have tried to work together, or even just like at the extraction, I'm like, hey dude, I'm just trying to get out. I got stuff, I just want to get out of here. Is okay, I've had most, like I said, majority of people, 99% of the time, like, yeah, cool, just come on. And I've done the same for other people, when they've come in, like, yeah, just come in, whatever. There's been a couple of clips where I've and actually it looked like there was a teams. I got thrown into like a team match, where I kind of just snuck in at the last second, because you can kind of tell like audibly, and there's a like a siren going off, but there's a light going too, so you can, and it changes depending on what's going on. If it's not an extraction point. I think it's like just yellow or something, or maybe even red. And then if it's green, then oh, hey, someone's trying to get out here, so you can kind of time it a little bit. Depends on the map too, because extraction is a little bit different on each maps. But yeah, I just kind of just jumped in literally at the last second as the doors are closing. And I just flew in there, and you really don't have time to once those doors close, you don't have time. You can maybe kill somebody, but you're not going to have time to loot them. So even if you down somebody, you're gonna you're gonna be, that person's still gonna leave with their stuff. So which is kind of nice too. Which is I kind of like that aspect of it, where you can be just crawling on the ground downed, and even if you're playing solo, you still just go down until either somebody melees you, or you just run out of health or whatever. But you can still crawl to the extraction computer and set that off. So it's kind of cool.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw it in the earlier part of the clip, but when I entered the elevator, there was a guy I had downed, but I didn't have time to get into his pack and go through his stuff. Also notice again, as I go back to it all depends where you're coming from. I heard gunfire in the vicinity of the elevator, and I know that people will potentially camp there, or at least until they know it's safe. I haven't been exposed yet to anybody outright camping the elevator yet. But I have I have come across people who are I need to figure out if it's safe first. And as you saw, I saw the PvPer first, and I was like, yeah, we're not having a discussion. I'm not taking any chances. So I immediately tried to take him out while he didn't know where I was. And then I actually saw a person go right to left after I took that person out. And I don't know where he went. On 2 occasions, I've had encounters with people who, it's interesting because I kind of do the same thing. If they get there's very much, this is very much a, if Fortnite and Escape from Tarkov had a baby. So there's very much in Fortnite, if you start receiving fire and you're like, where in the heck is that coming from? And it was back in the day of build, you would immediately start building. In no build mode, right? You just seek cover and you just look to get away. And if you get to a point where you can't figure out where the person is, you will just try and exit the engagement, right? And extend and escape. And I feel like on 2 occasions, it's very much been the same thing. I've had the drop on people, and then they've just disappeared, and they haven't come back to try and get me. Their objective was just to get away and get out of the engagement. So yeah, it's interesting to see the different tactics people are employing. It's also interesting. I mentioned that Fortnite and Escape from Tarkov having a baby, and I think that's pertinent too, because another another extraction shooter, which I'm not going to talk about tonight, that I onboarded to this week was Delta Force. Delta Force is like Battlefield and Call of Duty and Escape from Tarkov had a baby. So it's different how there's these slightly different dynamics and design paradigms going on in some of these extraction shooters.
Yeah, and Nate mentions that he's heard a lot of people saying lately that more people are shooting, I guess, during the solo, which I kind of figured that might happen too, as the game goes on, and you're getting out of the gear, and some of the quests too are you have to shoot people, you have to shoot other raiders, it's actual quests that they give you. So I can see that happening, but so far so good. Fingers crossed. It's been pretty good on solo. Teams though, on the other hand, at least the full teams, it's me and my friend, and usually it's just me and my one friend, but we have gone all 3 people that we actually know, and not just filling it with a random for a little bit. And we tried to be nice and be like, hey, we're just trying to leave, and we immediately get shot. So it's like, you know what, screw it, we're going scorch earth from now on. So we just shoot on sight if we see anybody. So it's kind of like a totally different game than at that point. So now you have 2 different things you're trying to worry about. The regular AI, or the AI enemies, and then obviously the regular people that are in there. So it's weird. It's kind of weird though, because I guess maybe when I'm thinking it now, when I was playing the what do they call them, the server slams that they had throughout the year, it almost seemed like I would barely see anybody, and that might be just because it's kind of a low population at that point, I guess, because not everybody could get into those except for maybe that last couple or so. And now it's just I'm always running into people, whether I'm solo or with a team. So that could also be now I'm paying attention more to the quests. So you have to go into certain areas, there's on the maps they show, which areas are medium loot, pools and which are high. So obviously the higher loot pools, there's probably going to be a lot of people. Of course, that's where you got to go most of the time when you're doing the quests. You get looking for a specific item or whatnot, a gun or a piece of material or whatever. So that could be part of the reason too. But it just seemed like in those server slams, it was like I would like barely ever see anybody. So it was actually kind of exciting to actually find somebody, because it was like, oh hey, there's actually another person on the map. But yeah, I don't know about you, Game Logic, but I think this game probably has one of the best audio that I've ever heard in games, as far as I guess kind of just audio in general. Just obviously since it's kind of competitive, or it is competitive, it's important that you're hearing, footsteps, and not just the AI enemies, but obviously the PvP people. But that's clear, and it's precise, like who you're hearing, even from like your partners to like if you're in there with somebody else. So that's a big plus. But just all the ambient sounds you hear throughout the world, and the music is good, is pretty good, and it's I don't know. I just think it's probably one of the better audios I've heard in a while in a game.
I feel like the audio is a little OP. Like, I appreciate the deliberateness and the intentionalness of it. That doesn't keep me from cursing out loud like every time I do something that makes noise. You open a door, and I mean it's obnoxious noise. Like you open a door, not these sliding doors, but like you go at it with like your salvage axe, and it's like, dude, like literally everybody on the map has got to be able to hear me right now. Anytime you go at something that just doesn't like open by itself, like, so there's cases all over the place that have to be pried open. This flippin' elevator thing, like you initiate it, like the klaxon starts going off and blaring. Yeah, it's just yeah. I mean, it's good, I guess. But sometimes I'm just like, dude, I should be able to like rummage through a pack without making so much noise. But it's really when you salvage from the droids, I feel like it makes like a lot of creaking, noise and stuff too. So I'm hoping that over time, like I feel like there needs to be something to compensate for that, and maybe that's in the skill tree. I think I have picked up a thing that says there is something that I've picked up in my skill tree that says there's something you can do now that like makes less noise or something like that. So maybe that's in there. But yeah, the noise for very little things to me are just super obnoxious. And you're totally relying on luck, right? That just nobody's in the vicinity to hear you.
Yeah, I always wonder too, like, usually unless I'm like right by a person or within a room, or say maybe two rooms, like away from somebody, I really can't hear like when they're doing that, like when they're opening something. But when you're like right there doing it, yeah, I mean it's like super loud, like, yeah, and like you said, especially like the extraction thing. Now I'll talk about that a little bit too during my Battlefield 6 gameplay here, but yeah, they're super loud, the extraction noise and just the blaringness of it, and then like I said before, you get the lights too going, so it's like they know you're going when when you're trying to extract, so they're not trying to hide it. But
so
it's a fun game though. I like it.
So you can see here, I'm trying to get right, like in this sequence here where I roll up on this tower that's out on a hill, not understanding or not knowing, right, because I haven't been to this part of the map before, that the only way to get up to this thing is through a roadway that actually winds up and around like in a spiral on the opposite side of the hill where I'm from. But there's somebody in this tower above me, and I mean I am hearing like every footstep. And of course I'm trying to fix his position now, because I figure like, okay, if he exits the tower, I'll be able to see him, right, if I pay attention to like which side he's coming out. Again, not understanding what the geography looks like, but yeah, but he's up above me in the tower, and you could just hear like every sound he's making. So yeah, I guess it's situational. It just depends, on what surfaces and what's in between you and them, maybe as well. I mean, what I will say, and what I'll absolutely concur with, I would expect and hope that across the 5 big award shows that this thing is eligible for. I don't know if it came out in time for the Golden Joystick Awards or not. but I would expect in the other 4, there were some particular categories for audio design, and I would hope that this would, at least get nominated, if not walk away with a couple of awards in audio design, because it's pretty amazing.
Yeah. And then just graphically too, it's a very pretty game. Not super, it's kind of drab. Obviously, this kind of post-apocalyptic scenarios you got here, but here this is the first map, right? I'm trying to tell. It's kind of hard to tell now.
I'm only on my second mission here, so yeah, this is the first map.
The dam, yeah, okay. There's one where it's kind of like a city buried, kind of like sand and stuff, and then another one where it's kind of like some hill, like kind of like this one, but it's a little bit more open. There's not a lot of trees in one of the other maps, and then there's like a spaceport. So it's a good variance in the maps so far. I think there's a new one that they just dropped, or they're going to drop, I believe. I think you have an article about it too coming up here in the news. But and it looks that one is all inside. It's all inside of like a complex, so you're never outside on that one. So it's I'm liking it so far. So how much of this have you played so far of Arc Raiders?
I've just played two missions, and so that's one thing that I'm kind of finding out with this subgenre, because again, it hasn't been one that I've been into, but I'm planning on playing some games tonight. Arc Raiders will not be one of them, nor will Arena Breakout Infinite. And like, I'm finding that there's so much of kind of that Diablo 4 inventory management kind of meta, particularly like, before going on missions and when returning, of sorting gear and taking stuff to people to sell, and crafting things and upgrades and all that like, there's a ton of time, right? Like I feel like for every 15 minutes, like in battle, I'm spending, the same amount of time, in wind down and prep, like for the next mission. So, it tends to be like a subgenre that I don't like playing unless I have like, a couple of hours, right? I don't like, I forget what it was. There was some place I needed to be last night, and I was like, yeah, I'm not playing unless I have like at least an hour, in front of me without an obligation. So, but yeah, I'm into the second mission. I'm having a great time with it. I love it. There's, again, I'm comparing it to Arena Breakout Infinite. I haven't picked up Escape from Tarkov, but I'm sure that I'll get into that one as well. It's interesting to see, what certain games do well and what other certain games don't. Every single one of them has some piece that's not intuitive. With this one, where I got bit was, I'm on this mission, and one of the quests that I have is to get 3 arc alloys, and destroy 3 like arc robots or whatever they're called. I got the 3 alloys. I had 5. And so that's one of the reasons why, like, when I was heading back for extraction, the timer was down to like 5 minutes. I was like, what I really like about these is that you don't have to complete quests. Like if a quest has 3 subparts to it, you get credit for whatever you complete, and then you can go out on another run and complete the rest of them. So that's really neat. But so I extract, I get back to Speranza. The first time I came back to Speranza, I had like, I don't know, like seeds or something, and there was a little note on it in my inventory that said, hey, Chelsea or whatever her name is might be interested in these. And so when you right clicked and hit sell, you actually sold them to that trader. Now I'm guessing that that's because I was in her shop at the time. So, but this quest, the 3 arc alloys are for, I can't remember her name, Shariah or something like that, the main trader that you are interfacing with in these early missions. And so I was back in my hut or whatever, and same thing, I hit sell, but then when I sold them, they didn't go to her. So now I'm like, great Scott, now I got to go back, now I got to get these things all over again, which is fine. But I was really, because the notion of like every mission that you go on, you achieving something, one of the things you will hate is if you screw something up back in that inventory management meta, that unravels what you accomplished in mission, right? And both in Arena Breakout and in this game, I see places where that can happen if you don't know the inventory management system explicitly, right? If you don't understand the market in Arena Breakout Infinite, if you trade the wrong thing. I think in Arena Breakout Infinite there are buybacks, and like that is something that this game needs. This game needs a way for you to do buybacks in case you screw something up, particularly in the early game, until people learn like the system. So, but yeah, all the other things you mentioned, I agree with. It's graphically great. I think if you could see the afterburner here, I think I'm getting like 165 frames per second or something like that. It's somewhere up above 115, I think. But
Game logic.
yeah.
For both of you, my question says, you're talking about like inventory management and gear. Do you find that the gear makes a substantial difference? I mean, one of the things that I've heard about it, right? There's lots of gear to manage, but whether or not it makes a significant difference in your, not only in your play style, but like your power curve and things like that. Like, are you finding that the management pays off in terms of the gear, or does it feel more busy work?
For me personally, not yet. What I reckon is that the moment I get access to a decent scope where I can actually see, that's going to make a huge difference. But no, I mean, right now, I would say engagements right now are dictated by who gets the jump first. And in an interesting place that I'm at, and this isn't a humble brag, but like in this game in Arena Breakout Infinite, I haven't been downed once. Now that may be just because luck of the draw, I'm running into players that are even less experienced than I am. I'm sure that will change at some point, and then my view of that world will radically, tilt. But right now, I mean, my engagements have been pulled off because I was the one who got the drop on them first, and saw them right while I was outside of their field of vision. And even if they had better gear than me, it wouldn't have mattered.
Yeah, for me, it kind of depends what I want to do when I'm going in. Like if I'm doing like quests and there's like specific things I'm looking for, I'll most likely not bring one of my better guns, or use all the attachments that I need, because I don't want to lose those. Because obviously, if you die, when you're in there, you lose everything unless you put it in your little safe pocket, which I think you can get up to 2 right now. I think is the most you can have of safe pockets. I think that depends on if you unlock that perk too, I think, within the skill tree, or it might even be like one of the kits you can put on. But I'll usually I'll just use a free loadout if I'm just going to do a quest, just so I just want to grab the material. Even though with the free loadout you don't get any save pockets, but sometimes I'll still kind of do that anyways, and just like I'm just gonna screw around. It's a free loadout, whatever. I'll just go in there, do that. But if there's something specific where I have to go into like a high loot area, then yeah, I'm probably gonna get my better weapons and better guns. Early on, it seemed like I was getting a lot of guns, like a lot of guns. Now it seems to have slowed down a little, but like I said, I haven't played as much as I had when it first came out. But it just still seems like I'm not, even like the weaker weapons, like I'm not even finding those as much as I used to before. So I don't know if that was something, just my bad luck, or if it's just something behind the scenes that they've kind of tweaked. Maybe, I don't know. I know they've done some updates where they've tweaked stuff, and I think that's been more in like specific areas, kind of like the what was it in Destiny, the loot cave. There was certain spots where you can get a lot of stuff, a lot of high end stuff. So they've tweaked stuff like that, and maybe it kind of cascaded down with doing other stuff. But yeah, it usually kind of depends on what I'm doing, on what I'll bring. And just going back to the inventory management. Yeah, that's kind of probably one of the negatives I've seen a lot online, and even just myself. You're looking at stuff, and all it says is it's crafting. It's for crafting. What it crafts, I don't know. Like it doesn't tell you specifically, so you have to go in, because you can like update the different benches, like for gear and explosives and medicine and all that. You can upgrade those, so you have to click a few times to go into the the workshop and stuff, and go to that specific thing to see what you need, and then click back into your inventory to see if you have it or not. So they might be able to hopefully they'll tweak that a little bit, maybe. I mean, I don't know. I guess that kind of makes it a little bit too easy if you just have it right there in your face. But yeah, that's a small price to pay, I guess, when you're doing that kind of stuff too.
Well, I feel like the weird thing is there seem to be like no tutorials almost. Like you
No,
do
other
the
than that first thing you go, just kind of the basic, hey, you can shoot and you can loot, and there you go, and then you're off into the world, and that's pretty much it.
yeah, and there's no hand holding. At least I mean I haven't unlocked the gunsmith yet, so but I mean there's no hand holding really through. I don't know. Maybe there's some hand holding, but I didn't feel like there were like kind of Monster Hunter World level like pages of information for you to
No.
read about each of the different systems.
No, you get like a little pop up maybe if you're lucky, like on stuff when you unlock it, and that's about it.
Yeah, I think the last two things I'll mention is inventory. Like, so in Arena Breakout Infinite, I mentioned like I quickly learned that like when you go out on a mission, don't even take a second weapon, because if you take a second weapon, you're gonna have virtually no room to loot anything. Like putting a weapon in your backpack takes up so much room that like if you find a high value item or something, you're not gonna have much. So I'm doing the same thing here, but I also feel like just the loot I've been exposed to and the amount of space I have in my pack hasn't been such that like I'm maxed out with stuff that I find in the first 5 minutes of the match, right? And then it's all a matter of like walking by stuff and just not even bothering with it because it's like unless it like severely trumps something that I have in my bag, like there's no point in bothering. And the medical treatment loop in this, at least for me for now, is like significantly different. In Arena Breakout, there's like tiers of like there's surgical packs, there's general health packs, then there's painkillers. Like, and so when you go out, you need to have kind of an array of medical stuff to deal with the different types of injuries. Here, I don't even. I guess maybe I have like a regular kind of health pack or whatever. And there's also food in Arena Breakout Infinite. I think the medical supply thing is very simplified and flattened in this game, and I haven't even had a need to access it yet. Whereas in Arena Breakout Infinite, like I'm in a firefight like every single time, and I always have to use at least some of my medical supplies and then go back and restock it, right? That's kind of part of the constant loop, is constantly buying medical supplies in Arena Breakout Infinite. So it'll be interesting to see how this unfolds, as I get further into it.
Yeah, it's definitely more simplified and Breakout, and even what I've seen of Tarkov. I've never played Tarkov, but I've seen videos of it, and yeah, you can break an arm or a leg, or your chest is super damaged, and it's not like that in Arc Raiders, which is kind of nice. I like that. It's a little more simplified. So you do have like bandages, and you have a separate thing for your shields, which you got to watch that. And then I think you can have like an adrenaline shot, which gives you extra boost for, I don't know, a minute or so. I think that's about it though, as far as I've seen. Excuse me. So I don't know if there's like more that you're gonna unlock later, but I'll have to find out as I play. But yeah, that's pretty much. I kind of like that it's kind of more simplified, and even with the management system, the inventory management system too seems a lot more simplified. Well, a little bit more, I should say, not a lot, a little bit more simplified than Breakout. And from what I've seen, especially Tarkov, I think Tarkov's kind of like that. It's the Elden Ring, like difficulty of inventory management. But it's been a good time so far. DB, any other questions you got for us?
No, I mean, I guess I have a question coming into the next game in terms of comparison, in terms of community space, because I think you guys described the community within Arc Raiders and kind of your experience both solo and queued up, grouped up, which I think is I love the narrative coming out of this game in terms of the potential different experiences, and it will be interesting to see what this, what the long tail community looks like if it continues to lean into the game logic, shoot first, ask questions later, or Tile Master jumping around and waving his hands of don't shoot, right? So I'm curious to see how this evolves, and I'm glad that it launched as stable as it did as well. So it's been kind of on my list and really interested in hearing about it, so I'm glad you both picked it up.
Yeah, other than that first day, maybe a couple days, there hasn't been any queues like there was those first couple days. So you pretty much get into map fairly quickly. So at least as far as I've seen. I don't know about your experience, Game Logic, as far as queuing up.
Yeah, I've only queued up solo. In fact, I don't have the thing activated for like fill team. Because like I know that I need time like to learn the systems and stuff, and I just don't want to be like bothered, by talking to people or I think this is another thing. It's like the baggage that you bring with you from other games. I mentioned last week on this thing of Arena Breakout Infinite, where you have so many people who are going in who actually aren't going on missions. They're just going in to chum, right?
Just to shoot,
yeah. Whereas, and so I saw from the quests here, same thing, right? You have objectives to accomplish, and I'm like, okay, I don't want to be bothered, but I don't want to be bothered by whatever other people are doing. Like, I need to do my thing. So
yeah. So the next game we'll talk about here that he has the video up for, if you're watching this right now or later on, is Battlefield 6, and this is the REDSEC game mode. So it's basically the battle royal mode, and REDSEC stands for redacted sector. So basically, they kind of give you a quick little blurb when you're kind of loading into the game or into the mode. There's been some kind of like massive explosion near or around LA or in California, and there's this big fire that's burning, and basically that's kind of the wall or the storm, if you will, for the battle royal that's closing in on you. So they kind of give you like a story beat for it, which is kind of nice, I guess, instead of just being just a random storm or random generic energy wall coming at you. But pretty much this reminds me a lot, but a little bit better, of Warzone back when it first started off. Just kind of basic stuff, like obviously, like here I'm going and getting my gear, and there's different weapons and accessories that you can get, and different kind of like tech toys, you can throw it on a thing where obviously if people throwing grenades at you, it just dissipates them, or it nullifies them so they don't blow up. And then there's trip mines, and just all other kinds of tools you can kind of use, which is kind of nice, kind of a little bit different. And it kind of reminds, actually, I mentioned Warzone, but kind of reminds me more of Blackout, which was Call of Duty's first battle royal game or mode they had back in the day, which is like, I guess, their Black Ops equivalent of battle royal. Whereas kind of have these gadgets, and you might call them kill streaks or whatnot, because you can call in airstrikes, you can call in which the airstrikes kind of, I think they do like 3, maybe 4 passes where they kind of just bomb an area that you kind of paint on the screen when you're looking through the goggles. And then there's just like one airstrike that it's like a massive explosion that comes down. They also have a smoke screen, which is kind of nice, more of a defensive thing where it just shoots down, and I kind of messed up my jump there down myself as I was jumping down that hill. It throws a smoke screen down like kind of this like huge area wherever you point to. So it's kind of nice that they have those abilities, and they're not like super wacky or anything. And like sometimes maybe Call of Duty you might get, they're kind of more grounded. So it's kind of nice. You do have some vehicles too. You do have just like a regular, like it's almost like a Humvee or Jeep type of vehicle that you can jump in, and has like a little mounted turret that you can jump on. And then there's a helicopter that you can get. And those two are like just on the map like all the time. And then they also have tanks that you have to unlock those though through the different missions they kind of give you, or quests that you can do during the game, which kind of adds another layer. I think in other games they might have had, or other battle royals, they always have quests and stuff, but these quests actually give you stuff in game. Like I mentioned, they give you a key card so you can unlock a tank within the map. And there's only one map so far. It looks like there might be more, just kind of the way the UI is when you're playing this at the beginning. It kind of has the map of the United States, so maybe there might be different maps around the US, or even maybe around the world. But hopefully we get some different maps too eventually. But there's just the tank. I'm trying to think now. Besides the tank, you can. Yeah, go ahead.
Tao, in the gameplay here, as you were running up against the firewall, so is the firewall constantly slowly creeping like a firewood, or is it more of the traditional battle royale ring closing, like you've got X number of minutes before it takes another percentage down and narrows in?
It's pretty much always just closing. You still have the ring like on your little map or your mini map that you can kind of see, and that kind of tells you,
like,
okay, hey,
there's a timer of like Apex Legends timer of you've got a few minutes between each kind of zone close.
Yeah, it's just kind of it's a little bit more slow, and I think it's always the same pace. Like it doesn't ever like speed up or slow down or anything like that. It's always just kind of just closing. So, and then you do have that kind of safe ring that you can kind of get to, but it really doesn't matter because it's still just kind of closed anyways. There's like no pause or anything. So, and then pretty much if you get hit, like if you can kind of see like there's a warning there. You can see it in the middle of the screen, like kind of where it's at. So and it can be fairly far away, and it'll start giving you the warning like, hey, 100 meters, this thing's it's right behind you, so you got to start moving, and then obviously it counts down as it's getting closer. But if you get hit by that, and like within a second or two, you're pretty much dead like right away on like kind of other games where you can kind of survive for a little bit longer, but here it's like
you can kind of run in and out of it or hide there for a little bit until the firefight clears. Yeah,
it's pretty much you're dead in this one, which I guess is kind of nice. So you do have to kind of keep moving and just keep going. And then so they do have, I was trying to see if I got to one of those chests, but it doesn't look like not right here. So you can find different rarities of weapons, and it's not really, the rarities aren't really that, hey, this is more powerful because it's red, or it's I think it goes up to epic, which is purple. It's purple not because it's more powerful, but more because it has more attachments on it. So that's kind of the rarity of it in the game. It's not just kind of a generic, a thing they put on like maybe like Fortnite and stuff where they have the different tiers. There's different weapons as you tier up, but it's basically the same weapon. It just has a bunch of attachments on it, so it makes it like a higher tier. There you go. So there's a kit right there that you can get that you can. Besides just finding, hey, I got a blue tiered or a purple tiered weapon, you can actually upgrade your weapon that you have depending on the kit. So I think that was for an LMG right there, maybe, or an assault rifle. It's kind of hard for me to see.
So Tao, one tactical question I would ask you: why are you running around with the hammer armed?
So when
I was wondering that as well. Yep.
Yeah, so you first start off with a knife, but I changed it to hammer, your melee weapon, basically. So when you run with that out, it's a lot faster than when you have your gun out. So that's why you'll see me switch to that a lot between kind of big spaces and stuff. So that's why.
Well, just an interesting note to hook back to our earlier conversation. That is also an arc raider mechanic. That if you put your weapon away, you can actually move faster. So
yeah. I actually forgot about that part in Arc Raiders. I did kind of going back to Arc Raiders for a second. I do find the stamina does go down kind of quick, I think, to me. I know there's kind of perks you can put on there later on for that, but it just kind of seems like it runs out like super quick compared to just other games. And maybe just because I'm more used to like, Call of Duty and Battlefield where it'll recover a little bit faster than that type of game. And I guess that's kind of deliberate too for Arc Raiders, but anyways, so like I said, you can find the different kits, so you can upgrade, whatever. So when you click on one of those kits, it actually pops up with a choice. It's usually two choices. So it's like, hey, do you want to focus on recoil? Do you want to focus on marksmanship? So and it'll kind of list like what it does as far as like what it buffs up that you're going to get for that specific attachment. So you can kind of pick. So that's kind of nice too. They give you a choice when you do that. And then you can kind of keep doing that until you get to, I think purple is the highest you can go right now to get those kits. So once you hit the purple, if you find another kit, you can't do anything with it. So just leave it or give it to somebody if you want. So
when I ask you one other question. So
yeah, go ahead.
And I mentioned this just to highlight our differences in perspective and like the types of games that we enjoy. This is not shade. But one of my nits of why I don't like battle royales is because, in comparison to arena shooters, is because of the amount of time that you spend in mission in the game not participating in combat. So I could be mistaken. I think I have yet to see you fire a shot and yet to get into an engagement. So what's kind of going on here with the dynamic of like how much fighting there is in the game, and
I kind of now what I'm doing is I'm trying to get away from everybody as much as I can, because once again, it'll just be me. It's probably just me. It's probably just my luck of the draw. But anytime I land anywhere, there's absolutely nothing. Like if I landed in this building that I'm in right now, like at the drop, I would literally find nothing in here, like at all. Maybe some like ammo or something. So I try not to land in like high populated areas. And there's in the map itself, there's no like indication like in Arc Raiders where it's like, hey, this is a high loot area or anything like that. And some of the other battle royale games kind of do that too. There's nothing like that as far as I can tell right now. It's just kind of random whether something happens to spawn in that area. Like if I went into this area like 2-3 games in a row, I might find stuff, I might not. So it just kind of depends. It's totally random, which I kind of like. I kind of like that you don't know what you're dropping into. So that's kind of nice. But in general, like when I'm dropping into something, I just know I'm not going to find anything like right away. I'm just going to get blasted right away. So in this particular game, I decided to drop, kind of as far as I can tell, away from everybody, which in this game, it just kind of happened to work out like that, there's nobody around. But I think in general though, even I think the outskirts, and it's pretty much like that in all battle royale games. People don't like to drop in those outskirt areas, like in the far edges of the map, which is I kind of like to because I know people don't do that. And I have time to actually loot. I'm not going to get killed, so that's just my reasoning lately in that. So there's a specific, and I don't know why, there's a specific area. It's called the golf course. I think I might have passed it, or I might be coming up to it. Where people just like to drop there. I think it's it over there. It's actually in the fire now, but people like to drop there. It's just huge, like a country club type of building. So it's kind of big. So there's all kinds of loot. Usually there's all kinds of loot there, but obviously when I get there, I can't find anything. Or I would just find like some little, I'll find like a sniper rifle when the guy finds an SMG or something, and I'm pretty much cooked. So I try to avoid those type of areas. But all in all, though, and like I said, I think it's because it reminds me of Blackout a lot. That's why I'm enjoying this battle royale so much, more than kind of the other ones I've been playing lately or tried out lately. And even I guess I didn't try the, what was it, Battlefield 5, I think had there was a battle royale mode too. I never tried that one, so I don't know how it was. I know a lot of people didn't like it, but it seems like a lot of people are enjoying this one, and I've never seen any problems, getting into matches in this, right, at least right now. Obviously, it's pretty new, so you're going to see more of a high population, but I've been having a good time with it so far.
So I want to ask, because I've played some REDSEC as well, but I've only played Gauntlet mode. So Gauntlet mode is the 32 player. You squad up in squads of 4, and you do 3 or 4 rounds, and each round has a different objective. But you're doing some looting. You're still doing, you don't have a drop. You're not coming out of a helicopter. You're kind of dropped in with your squad in a certain spot. But I've enjoyed that because it's a little more bite size of what I think of as Battlefield, right? Like you're playing different objectives, and you've got sometimes it's simple things like just a death match or a zone capture. But the ones that I found that came up frequently for me in the couple of matches that I played were things like you're collecting a beacon and holding onto it, or you're finding intel and trying to bring it back to a certain area. So there's different types. Each round has a different kind of objective, and depending on how you score as a squad, you make it through or not. And so like in the final round, it's, you go from first round with 8 different squads down to 6 to 4 to 2. And again, I haven't dove it all into the full battle royale mode, but I've really enjoyed what REDSEC Gauntlet provides in terms of kind of getting some Battlefield feeling, but it is a tighter map. There's definitely firefights there, game logic in that, because it forces you into those objectives, and you are in a tighter space, but you still have some vehicles, you still have some of the same landscape, like it's reusing zones of the map as it's dropping you in depending on the objective.
So I haven't played Gauntlet yet. So could you potentially go through that without just doing the objective and not having to fight anybody then? Or do you have to eliminate people too eventually?
Each of the ones that I've had, I've come into, like the final round has been a deathmatch, but that looks like more by luck. There's a couple different, of looking it up, there's a couple different modes that could be the final round. Sometimes it is things like, it kind of goes back to Battlefield Hardline. Like there's a heist mode where you've got to capture things from an enemy base and bring it back to your base, or a high value target aspect so those kind of force you into having some firefights. Technically, I suppose, depending on if you have like one where you're finding councils and or intel and bringing it back and forth, you could score the highest without necessarily having a firefight. But it seems, and I haven't looked into this specifically, but just playing it feels like the map size shrinks a little bit each time you're going. So it forces you're in a much tighter space as I get into a third and fourth round. So it takes a whole lot less time in those later rounds to run into somebody.
And can you, I'm assuming you can revive like someone's down, but can you like respawn somebody too?
No, once you, that's a good question. I don't know. You can revive people. I don't think you can respawn, but I haven't, let's just say in the randoms that I've been playing with, nobody has tried to respawn me, but I have been revived and I have revived people. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, in Battle Royale, you can, other than obviously just reviving, you can actually respawn people. There's like respawn beacons strewn about the map. So, and I think you can do that up until, I don't know, last few minutes or so. So, and then, yes, it seems, I'm trying to remember, because I was asking that because it kind of sounds like there's a Call of Duty mode, and I can't remember, maybe Game Logic, you might remember, that came out with, well, I didn't come out with Warzone. I think it came out later, where it kind of sounds like that, where it's like kind of smaller area, but you can respawn. I think it respawns until like everybody on your team dies. But as long as somebody was left alive, you can respawn, people. I can't remember what that mode was called. I don't know if you remember. I don't know if you've ever played. I think I played it a few times, but it kind of sounds like that, but with missions basically. So, and those missions you're describing too, you can do those. Those are basically missions you can do or quests you can do within the Battle Royale too. That's how you can get like the tank key card or just other kind of special gear and stuff like that. So, but yeah, it's a really just, I've been having a lot of fun, and the classes do, even though you still can use like any gun depending on which class you have, but just like in the regular mode, you kind of spawn in with, kind of class specific stuff. So like the assault person has like special like grenade launcher stuff that you can use. Support has the little medic bag, and they can find a defibrillator within the game. You just don't have it, as soon as you have to actually find that one. Recon has a little drone that you can use, obviously to mark people, and come like a little beacon that you can plant down to. So there's a lot of other stuff like that too that kind of factors into it. So it's kind of cool. It's kind of nice. But yeah, been having a lot of fun with it. Any other questions or comments on that one? DB, if you want to jump on there again and talk about Dispatch.
Sure. So since we started the top of the show off talking about superheroes, let's go to the superhero game of the moment, which is Dispatch by Ad Hoc Studios. This is, I talked about this a few weeks ago when I had played through the first half. So there's 8 different episodes. They've been dropping 2 episodes a week. And this past week, the final 2 episodes came out. I don't need, for the sake of time, I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time with this, because I can already tell you that I'm going to be coming back to this to talk about at the end of the year. It's great. I mean, the voice cast is, so there's a lot of Critical Role people in here. Aaron Paul is the lead, but then you have let's see who we've got. Matt Mercer and Aaron Yvette from Critical Role, Laura Bailey, Alana Pierce, formerly of IGN and other places, has a voice actor role. So the voice acting is really strong. It's a great superhero cartoon, right? I mean, the gameplay, like I talked about the first time when I talked about it, the gameplay is this kind of strategy, resource management of your superheroes. You are the dispatcher of the title, that you get calls and they give you kind of a hint of what the what's needed to be successful. And so you have 5 different kind of skills. Each hero has 5 different skills, and they have different kind of ratings on those skills. So charisma, intelligence, like combat, vigor, which is kind of like strength, and then speed. And so depending on kind of what maybe you are in one of these, you're trying to save people on a plane that's crashing. And so do you send out your superheroes that can fly, or do you send out people that have strength because they're going to kind of help catch it and bring it down? Or is it a combo of them? And so as you finish a mission, they're all kind of on timers. Sometimes as that mission's going on, you'll get a interrupt that will then ask for it'll give you another set of options. Sometimes that is something happened in the middle of the mission, and now you've got to make a choice. And do you have them try to solve this peacefully? Do you beat them over the head? And depending on who you sent on that mission, there may be character specific choices that can come up, because this character has and you don't know that until you send them. This character, like a cult is starting and causing trouble, and one of your characters is like a demon that has a kind of magic from X-Men, like portal and sword, very similar to that, but is so that person I sent to go meet with the cult, and she had a unique ability to negotiate with them because of who she was as a character. The final two really episodes really move quickly. The fact that they're dropping them in pairs has been really nice, because the episode 7 ends with a big kind of cliffhanger that speeds you right into the final episode. The ad hoc is former Telltale and some Ubisoft people. So it's a very kind of Telltale-esque in terms of this character will remember this. You've got a timer bar that is going on and making your dialogue choices. There was a time early in the episode 8 where everything kind of slows down because of some story events that happens, and you don't, like, when you're in the dispatch menu or in the dispatch kind of game mode, even the calls are coming what feels like really intentionally slow, and the music is kind of just drops out, and it kind of forces you to sit in the uncomfortable silence of the emotional story beat that had happened beforehand. And so it's really effective in that way. The finale, depending on the choices you make, you have more or less choices as you come into the finale. Learned that by talking to somebody else just last night who is on their second full playthrough. I'm halfway through my second playthrough already after it dropped on Wednesday, and I finished it up, and I've already started back around to make some different choices. But it also is set up nicely where, like, this person I was talking to last night, they missed some of the timing windows on certain things in the final episode, and so they went back and just replayed that episode. So you can there's 4 different save files. You can start another save file and totally refresh, or as you've gone through, you can jump back in to, you don't want to play the first 2 again, and you want to jump into one of the big kind of story branching paths, divergent points that happens in episode 3 and 4. And you could just start there and then follow it back through. My only knock on this is, and maybe this is kind of why I started it up right away, is I felt like everything ended almost too nicely. Maybe I got a good ending, right? I know I didn't get the best ending because I have seen some other stuff out there in terms of even just some of the achievements that pop up on Steam. Like it gave me a hint that this was not the best ending because it said I didn't do something. but everything kind of wraps up in a kind of PG-13 superhero-y kind of positive way. And it feels like I wish there would have been a little more loss, death, kind of emotional taxing that happens. And so I'm curious in another playthrough if some of that does occur and I just missed it in this playthrough, or if it all kind of accumulates back in. I can see where some of my alternative choices play out and where they could come back in. And so I'll be very curious to see if it follows that. Like again, this is the kind of narrow, the wide narrow path of it's similar to Mass Effect, right? You've got some choices that make you feel like you have some agency, but it's all kind of funneling you back toward a specific end goal. And there may be some nuance and flavor differences, but ultimately you're ending up in the same spot. And so I'll be very curious to see if that's the case. But even if it is, I really like where it ends up. And it doesn't, at least in the ending that I got so far, it doesn't end in a way that is like a giant cliffhanger for there's going to be a sequel, right? But it also ends in a way where in a space with the characters of they could certainly come back to this universe and do more with them. So yeah, it's been really enjoyable and a really solid superhero story.
Now, do you think they'll just do a 2, or do you think they'll just do some more levels, or a little more like story, just drop more story levels?
I mean, so it's planned for only 8, and it wraps up
Okay.
in such a way. So I don't see them doing any kind of DLC for this. They tell a complete story. And so if they're going to come back and do something, especially, I mean, it is the production value for being a small studio is really high. It's all 2D animation. And in part, the production value is high because this was originally planned as a live action and then an animated. And so it's gone through a couple of different life cycles of things. But so no, I don't see this as something. The fact that we had a new story this week where it's already sold over 1 million copies. So it seems to be doing pretty well. It's only on PC and PlayStation 5 at this point. There's no reason it shouldn't run on a Switch. It runs really nicely on a deck as well. So I could see them doing something more, but again, pulling all these voice casts back together, and it will be interesting to see what they do next.
Nice. Yeah, I know this is something that my son had actually brought up today to me, saying that he was interested, which is kind of interesting because he's not usually a single player type of guy. So I was like, oh, okay. 'Cause I had heard of it. I just didn't know too much about it. So, and I know he had mentioned it before on the show. So
yeah, it's much more of in the Walking Dead type of Telltale aspect than it is any type of. There's not much gameplay there, and actually, even in the quote unquote gameplay of the dispatch aspects, you can succeed and fail, but it ultimately doesn't change kind of the narrative beats that happen afterward. Like when the cartoon starts back up, you're all kind of you're starting off in the same spot. The biggest impact is how successful or leveling up your characters or your main character. There are a few missions in the very kind of finale, as everything's kind of spun up and coming to a climax, where it does feel like there's potentially a way to that dispatch gameplay can impact something, but I wasn't successful, and maybe it is a forced failure. And so you definitely get some of those moments where it feels like it may just be forcing you to fail in order to keep the narrative beat in the way that they've designed it.
Yeah, and just be aware that the ESRB rating is MA 17 plus.
So I will say, for the sake of, and this is for anybody, One of the things, yes, it is. It's very much there's some nudity, there's some language. When you start a new run, you've got the option, because it's also built for streaming. You get like 3 options that you can set from the get-go. One is to turn off licensed music so you can stream it. One is to turn off language, and one is to turn off nudity. And so you can leave those on or off. And so that may be the place where it starts or the default, but you certainly can tailor that so that, granted, it's 8 episodes and each episode is 45 to an hour. Whether you're going to be there every time your kid boots it up and making sure that they're still using the same save or they've started over because they saw that there was a filter. But if they're, so yes, I think that is probably the one piece. The language is probably, I would say there's plenty of F-bombs, but the nudity is very minimal. It's not heavily, there's probably 2 episodes where there are some, I should say in the story beats that I got, the nudity was relatively minimal.
Nice. All right. Gimlick, anything else on this one?
Yep. No, I don't have anything.
All right. Right before we get to the main news, thanks, Retro, for stopping by, and Here We're Down Under, thanks for stopping by also. Hope you have a good night or day, depending on what you're doing today. Game Logic, do you want to jump into the first few news articles here?
Do you want me to skip the last game?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I forgot you had yours. Sorry. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry, F1 25.
Yeah, I'll make it quick. I know we're pushed for time. So the other game I've been playing is F1 25 on the PS5 Pro. Had a good time with it. Did a Let's Play that I posted up on the Rounding Off Infinity channel. So here I'm doing a 29 lap race. I think I have the formal races on like 50%. So it is not short. It's about an hour to run 29 laps at Albert Park in Australia at the season opener. So it's tons of fun. Putting the race at that length does kick impacts in, like what is your pit strategy. So I'm on a 2-stopper strategy here. It invites a lot of that drama that you get out of a Formula One race. During this race, actually I think pretty early on, I'm here trailing Verstappen, trying to get around him. In fact, I do get around him, but in the course of getting around him, I damaged the front right wing, and it turns out when I go into pit twice, I guess the damage is there, but it's not enough that my crew feels like they need to replace it. So I actually wind up running the race with a damaged front wing for the vast majority of the race, which does have some impact because in certain scenarios I'm able to get around. I'm not able to get around people as much, and so it kind of created some drama. So very interesting with the pit strategies and who I wound up coming out behind, and like I've played this enough that and I watch Formula One enough that I know how some of the AI behaviors will there are certain cars that I know, like Verstappen, I know if he's behind me, even though I can't see him on the track, like he can be 9 seconds behind me, and I know that he will take like a second out of me each lap. So, if I've got 9 laps left to go in the race, I actually really need to pay attention and look in the upper left-hand panel and see, if he's gaining on me and walking me down, and pay attention to how much time I'm making around on each lap. So this year is the year that I got it on PS5. Different years I get it on different places. I am playing with the Thrustmaster T300 RS GT edition wheel and pedals here, so having a good time.
So that answers one of my questions, was the wheel and pedals versus controller. But my other question is, so you're playing this on a PS5 Pro. You've played this plenty on some very capable hardware on a PC. How, performance-wise, graphics-wise, how does it feel from a PlayStation 5 Pro to what you've experienced running it on a solid PC?
Yeah, I mean the advantage that a PC provides at this point is kind of in the noise. Like, I mean, definitely definitely in the zone where, unless I'm being really pedantic and really pretentious, right, it's not something I would know or notice. And there's not anything from a choice perspective. I've spent a lot of time over the last few years telling people like maybe you go to PC for frames and image quality, but the reason you stay on PC lifelong is because of the choice that it provides you in order being able to tailor your experience, pick your peripherals, that kind of stuff. There's nothing here that really would say I have to be on PC. This isn't like a shooter. Like today, I do not play shooters on consoles. I will always play shooters on PC with Helldivers 2 maybe being the exception of that. But yeah, it's nothing in the extreme. The one thing that I've never gotten into is F1 does take voice commands, but I've never set them up to use them effectively. And in fact, I think if I remember what I've read, they actually work better on console than they do on PC because PC requires that you have certain other features enabled, which I don't think I have them enabled on PC, like taking voice commands and things like that. So that might have been the only difference, but that's not a functionality that I really use.
Nice. Any other questions or comments, DB? No. All right. Let's jump into the news. Sorry, I didn't mean to skip over that game. I scrolled down on it. I forgot to scroll back up. I forgot there was one more game that you're talking about. Game Logic, if you want to take your first news story about Arc Raiders, which I think I mentioned earlier.
Yeah, and I'm just gonna whip through these news stories. So the first news story, Arc Raider on VG247, Arc Raiders' new map will be unlocked through a community event that starts today, and everyone has to donate. So I think you might have mentioned that, Tao. As many of Arc Raiders' regular players predicted, the game's first post-launch map won't just be available for everyone. It will instead be closely tied to a community event. Breaking New Ground is the name of that event, and it's one where everyone will need to contribute in order to rebuild some old tunnels and unlock the way to Stella Montis. The event kicks off today. This news article was actually 3 days ago. Alongside the release of the game's latest patch, the ask is relatively simple. Players must commit basic materials to the project so that the tunnels can be built. This option will be available to anyone who's played at least 5 rounds. And I think when you go into the introductory mission, they tell you, because I started after this event kicked off, they tell, like, there's a thing somewhere in the menu that says, if you want to travel to this area or whatever, you have to contribute to this thing. It looks like a big cylindrical container where I guess you deposit your stuff. So that is in effect now, I think. And once you get to whatever level, you can contribute to it.
I must have just missed that. I think Wednesday was the last day I played, so I haven't done my contributions yet. So I've been a bad raider so far, so gotta do that. All right, you want to jump into the next news article about Capcom?
Yeah, next news article. Capcom readies Pragmata as original IP is rated in South Korea. I included this in the rundown because I have a ton of interest in tracking Pragmata. It looks really interesting to me. Capcom first announced Pragmata, a rare original IP from the publisher best known for Monster Hunter, Resident Evil, and Street Fighter back in June 2020. Since then, it's been delayed multiple times, and it's now due in 2026. Now, the game has been rated by South Korea's ratings authority via Gematsu. While this doesn't directly correlate to a release time frame, it does suggest the game is far enough along to be officially rated by the body. Based on what we've seen from games getting rated, even in different territories, I would assume that this game is out in the next 3 months. Capcom typically puts out is Resident Evil out next year, and it's typical like Q1 release, right, in February or something like that, or maybe March. I think it's maybe later than it normally has been.
Yeah, but it's a Q1 release though. Yep.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see if they put this out like in close proximity to it. I would think that those crowds are different enough that this may not necessarily be spaced out by like a full quarter. So yeah, this is great to hear this is coming out. My one issue is that the only games that Capcom has been able to put out that perform on PC are Resident Evil. Everything else is like had performance problems. I'm hoping this is I hope this is on the Resident Evil side of performance and not like Dragon's Dogma and Monster Hunter and everything else they've been putting out.
What was the story behind this game again? Like, or what's the gameplay like? I don't remember. Like, I remember seeing like the very original like trailer, which is like a CGI trailer, but I don't know if they've shown actual gameplay since then.
Yeah, they have a little bit. This is the one where you have a android, where you have a companion. The little girl is like an android, I believe, and she has powers that actually you utilize in combat. So sometimes she's dormant, but then there's these like set pieces where she could like do something. I don't know if she's triggerable like just in combat like generally, but there are certain specific things that she can do where she can like hack an android or buff your defense or something like that to give you specific abilities to surmount like a given challenge. And then obviously she can like help you hack doors or something like that. So
okay. Cool.
It is third person, if I'm not mistaken. So it's a third person action adventure escort type of thing.
Okay. Escort, but she helps you. Unlike other games where it's like a burden.
Not the escort, like protect this person, at every moment in time and make sure that their health doesn't go to zero type of thing. Right? She's actually an active participant in your combat and getting past challenges.
Nice. All right. Let's go on to the third news story on some PC hardware.
Yeah, very quickly. Intel's upcoming Arrow Lake desktop refresh detailed a new leak. Core Ultra 290K Plus, 270K Plus, 250K Plus will ship with improved clocks and more E-cores along with the DDR5 7200 support. The big deal from this is Intel released its Arrow Lake processors, I think last fall at the same time that AMD released its 9000 series. These processors, it's kind of the tail of the tape is a little goofy. There was much ado made about how these processors like didn't stack up to the AMD ones because of the hyper focus on gaming. But like that's all that was ever discussed about these processors. Like no conversation about like, well, how they do in video editing and how they do with other workflows and things like that. In terms of overall compute, as far as I know, the Arrow Lake processors stack right up with the general AMD 9000 series processors. The one big difference is that the AMD X3D chips, there are no, if I'm not mistaken, I don't think there are any enthusiast level Intel chips in the space. So there is not like a Core 9 Extreme or whatever that Intel usually does when they went to this new naming scheme. So there's nothing at that upper level tier to compete with AMD. And so AMD kind of just walked all over Intel last quarter. Intel is now refreshing these chips, and so there are the SKU numbers are like I think like 5 or 10 above whatever was released last year. So now there's a 290K, whereas the old upper SKU was like 285 or 280K. And supposedly these are going to be better from a gaming perspective, which will be fine. Like there's still tons of gamers that just buy Intel because that's the name that they trust. And they don't feel comfortable with AMD. But AMD did take huge market share in that enthusiast DIY market segment last year. So, it'll be interesting to see how this turns out and see how these get benched. Unfortunately, as is normally the course for Intel, I think this is the last chip that's on this particular socket, which is the LGA 8251 socket. So there is no forward compatibility on motherboards and new CPUs coming down the line. So, if you get on this, and you get a motherboard for it, that's your last ride. But again, that's not unusual for Intel. I'm accustomed on Intel. If you build and upgrade on an Intel baseline, having to upgrade the motherboard every single time you upgrade the CPU. So, but that's the interesting thing is that these chips are coming out with some performance boosts and stuff, and maybe they'll make a few sales this fall beyond what they had last year.
Nice. DB, anything on that one?
No, I think it's just the fact, as Game Logic said, right, that AMD really did make up some market share over the past year. So, but let's talk about some other potential market shares with what I feel is the big news story of the week.
Yeah, so Valve has announced their new Steam hardware coming out next year for 2026. We got a new controller, new VR headset, the Steam Frame, and then new Steam Machine. So new kind of mini PC that they'll be releasing sometime next year. They haven't said when exactly. They didn't give any kind of like quarter or anything like that. They just said it'll be out next year, and
Well, they did say early, so it
oh yeah, that's right.
would
I'm
lead
sorry.
you to believe
First,
half one of
second, yeah.
So
First or second
before
quarter.
July, theoretically, I would guess.
Yeah, that makes sense, right? First quarter of the new fiscal year. So,
yeah. So, and then no prices so far. Just rampant speculation so far out there on the internet. But just jumping in really quick, I'll jump into the controller first. So you obviously the first thing you'll see is they have the two track pads there. They do have the parallel sticks, which I really don't like all too much, but I think it might be a little bit better on this controller than PlayStation, just because it looks like it's a little not wider, but a little taller, this controller, or at least it seems like that just because of the trackpads. So it might be a little bit better, maybe, at least for me. Like I know a lot of people like, PlayStation controllers and, the parallel controllers. It's just, I always like the offset controllers for the most part. Just kind of key features. So you got the little plug and play puck or dongle that you can use for wireless transmission through there, or you can also use Bluetooth. It does have Bluetooth on there. That little puck also does charge the battery, the internal battery within that controller. They have next generation magnetic thumbsticks, high definition rumble, and grip enabled gyro. So capacitive touch there in the back. You can kind of see there that you can, I guess you just press in and then the gyro is then enabled. And then you have the normal motion controls. You have the grip controls in the back. Obviously, the grip buttons. There's a Steam button that, of course, brings you into the Steam store and your library and such. And then a quick access menu for friends list, chat, and more. Which they didn't really say what that's for, but could be. And I know probably a lot of the buttons will be probably customizable, kind of just like it is on the Steam Deck. So you can kind of go in there and play around with it and configure it how you'd like. So that's always a nice feature. Anything. Does this interest you at all, guys? As far as just having another controller, would this replace any of the controllers you currently have, or just something that you'd like to try? For me, it's probably gonna just be like, yeah, I'll probably buy one just so I could try it. I don't know, but I'll have to see once I get my hands on it.
I'll probably definitely buy two. I also don't want to. Don't give too short shrift to the sticks being TMR, right? So we're living in a world now, for whatever reason.
Yeah. That's key here.
None of the console manufacturers are even making Hall effect sticks, right? Which is just baffling to me. And TMRs are the next thing, like next level up in terms of quality and durability from even Hall effect sticks. And here we have Steam doing the do. So I really Valve doing the do. So I really appreciate that, and I think it should be definitely noted that TMR sticks are like sticks that come on like very, very, very expensive. Not super. I shouldn't say very expensive controllers. I use the 8-bit Do Ultimate Wireless Controller 2 now, and those have TMR sticks. So it's nice to see Valve getting on board with it.
Nice. DB, did you have anything on that?
No, I mean the build quality of it. I'm curious to see what it feels like. I enjoy, or I rarely use, but I appreciate the technology in the trackpad, touchpad aspects of the Steam Deck. So having it here definitely feels makes a whole lot of sense. I am curious what type of price and what type of bundle they provide to pair this with the Steam machine.
I was trying to look. Oh, I guess it does have the weight on here. It's 292 grams. So I was just wondering just kind of the weight, because I would say the heaviest controller I have is probably I guess it'll probably be my first generation Xbox, what do you call it? The Elite controller that they have. But the Pro controller for Nintendo 2 is kind of close second. So you kind of have that heft to it. I kind of like that, but obviously I don't want it to be too heavy. So that's what I'm kind of worried about, just kind of how it feels and how heavy it is. So just kind of a weird thing. Up next, Steam Frame. So it's their second, I believe, second iteration of their VR headsets. Once again, kind of high level stuff. They got the wireless adapter with dual radios. So it's a plug-and-play 6 gigahertz wireless adapter, provides a dedicated link for both VR and non-VR streaming. Steam's frames dual radio makes this connection even more stable. One radio is dedicated for the streaming of audio and visual, and the other to the Wi-Fi. So you have two different radios there doing stuff. And then they're introducing the I don't know how to say this word, FOV-aided streaming or FOV-aided streaming, a new feature that optimizes detail where your eyes are looking and typically offers an over a 10 times improvement in image quality and effective bandwidth. And then, of course, you got the integrated audio, seamless audio experience. Controllers, obviously, you have the Steam. It's kind of the same thing as, the Steam controller. You have the Steam button and the kind of the options button. I'm just trying to see. And it is a standalone headset, so you can use it, on its own, just like you can with the Quest, or you can plug it into a PC. And play it that way and stream stuff that way, which I do use on my Quest 3, I do use the Steam VR actual app. And I actually have a lot better experience with that than actually plugging it into my PC sometimes. It depends on the game, but for the most part, it's been actually pretty nice, pretty stable. So with that little dongle that you have now too, it should be even better, I would think. So that'll be interesting to see.
So does it have does it have a, because I may have missed what you said. You said it can.
It will connect. There's no wires. It's streaming from your PC, right? It's a pass through. I mean, it's not connecting in.
So it's a Wi-Fi streaming basically.
Yes.
So
Well, it does both, right? It can run in connected mode, connected to the PC, but it's also a standalone PC in and of itself that runs on an ARM processor from Qualcomm.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. That's correct.
Sorry, I was kind of jumping around there.
So that's my one concern is, I mean, you want to, VR is more dependent on high performance than any other form of gaming on PC. I like to believe in Valve, right, and believe that they can figure out things that seems like most mortal companies can't. But if you ask me what I want from a VR headset, I want one that I can connect via cable, because I never want to have questions, right? I never want to be bothered with. I never want to be unsure, and so it would be nice to see if I mean, this thing has an expansion port on it, there. So I'm hoping that at some point there is some. I mean, with the way HTC handles it, there's a cable you can buy that's a separate thing, and I think the MetaQuest. One of the MetaQuest ones had the same thing too. So it'd be interesting to see if they eventually provide that as an option for
also
get the best.
Also has the SD slot too, which is interesting for that set. So expansion on your storage. So that's nice. So it looks pretty good. Yeah, I mean, the Quest 3 that I have right now, I mean, it's pretty good. Most of the time I'm plugging it into my PC anyways, so it kind of doesn't matter. But I mean, this price would have to be, fairly competitive for me to buy this, since I already have the Quest 3. So, and even that, I'm not even using really too much right now, at least. So there hasn't been a ton of games that I've been, gaga over for the Quest 3. Let's jump to the Steam Machine now. So we got a new Steam Machine, little Gabe Cube, as everyone's been calling it. Jump in here so obviously it has SteamOS, small form factor, it's cool and quiet, so a bunch of ports on it. So basically just a mini PC. What is it? I'm trying to look for the CPU here. Hold on a second. I think it's it's slightly modified or semi-custom AMD Zen 4, up to 4.8 gigahertz, 30 watts. GPU to is a semi-custom AMD R&D A3. 2.5 gig max sustained clock. So 16 gigs DDR RAM with 8 gig DDR6 VRAM. Once again, you can get it in. It'll have two models of storage, so 512 or 2 terabytes. So they jump up there. So once again, that's going to probably depend on pricing too and how that's going to work. And then, of course, you got all the usual ports and USB ports. You got a gigahertz gigabit, excuse me, Ethernet. It's the Wi-Fi. It's got the Wi-Fi 6E, which is that's fine. But yeah, so just a mini desktop. I think people saying it was slightly less powerful than a PS5 Pro. I believe I didn't get a chance to look at the comparison specs to like other consoles and stuff like that. But I don't know if you guys had a chance to do that.
Yeah, I'm choosing to ignore those comparisons. I think, first of all, some of them have just been wrong. But I think the key thing about this is like I don't think it matters. I think different people in different camps are going to get very hung up on those comparisons. And I think at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. There's a lot of people looking at like the compute units who are like, oh, it has, fewer compute units. Like, it does not matter. What matters is what Valve is going to do with this from a software perspective, what they're going to do out of partnering with AMD. And like the Steam Deck at the end of the day delivers an experience that is greater than the sum of its parts. Great. And so whatever that optimization is, whatever secret sauce they're able to put into it, they've claimed this thing does 4K 60. I think if it can't do 4K 60 with games released in 2025, then that will be a problem. And I mean, provided those games even do 4K 60 on any other GPU, right? Provided that they're not this array of Capcom games that I just called out for not being performant even on big metal hardware. So, take those out of the equation, like level the playing field. It needs to do 4K 60 with at least modern games that are releasing this year. Starting next year, right? It will depend. And that to me is the benchmark of success or failure. But what I'm holding on to from a belief perspective right now is that this thing is going to deliver on performance beyond what people are looking at the specs. So I don't think that the specs will matter at the end of the day. I think the only thing that's going to matter is once this thing deploys and Digital Foundry gets a hold of it or other people get a hold of it, is how those games perform and how they look on a 4K TV. Now that's for part of the market. I think there's going to be a chunk of this market, as much as the thing is being marketed as like it's put it in your living room and blah, blah, blah. I think this thing is going to go out to a lot of people who are already PC gamers, who already are on Steam, who look at this thing as an extension of Steam as it grows into an actual ecosystem and platform and fabric of its own, and will say, I just play at 1440p. Because as the Steam hardware survey proves, the vast majority of these guys play at 1080p in the first place. And I think that the vast majority of people who are in the PC space, who actually understand specs and understand performance and understand tuning, I'm going to arrogantly say I think that there are a lot of them who are like me and will say 1440p is the sweet spot. It's the place you play to get the best balance of performance and image quality. And anytime you go to 1080p, going down to 1080p, you sacrifice image quality. Going to 4K, you start sacrificing performance. So we play at the sweet spot. And as much as the tagline on this thing is the 4K 60, I don't think it's going to matter as much as how well it plays at 1440p.
DB, any thoughts on the Steam machine, the new Steam machine?
Lots of thoughts on it, but I was really curious on Game Logic's analysis there, and I think he's spot on in terms of it. If it can mirror what the Steam Deck has accomplished in terms of how the games play running on Proton, like I think it, and potentially where it comes in as a price point, it sets itself up for being a very accessible machine for people who are not looking to kind of, as Game Logic was talking about with F1, to go in and tweak everything constantly. Granted, it would still allow you to do that because it is still a PC, but it seems to provide accessibility or a low barrier to entry that could tap into a different market. I think the challenge is going to be, is this something that is going to only be sold on Steam, like the Steam Deck? Or we also know, and it's out there in the materials, is that Valve's, just like they did with the original Steam machines a decade ago, that other PC makers can take the specs, can load it up, can make similar boxes, and what that looks like in terms of a market. But at this point, I'm very curious, kind of excited, interested to see what happens. But I know that we'll probably be talking about it as more details come out closer to launch.
All right. I think we'll stop there because I think there's a lot of thoughts that we can say about these machines, but for the sake of time, maybe we'll come back to it.
I was about to crack open the egg, and I was like, I know people will get mad if I keep going, but yeah, there's at least a minimum 1 hour conversation about this. We may actually want to look at parking that somewhere on the schedule and the agenda.
I think that makes sense, right? This could have been the majority of a podcast. I mean, it's a new hardware announcement to some degree. Yeah.
I tried to blow through the news, but I didn't anticipate we were going to eat up as much on gameplay. But you mentioned some things, DBQ, that I definitely want to follow up on. So yeah, maybe we'll see what happens next week.
Yeah, we can try to revisit next week if it's not a lot of new stuff going on. All right, so let's jump into our round robin. DB, you have Xbox.
Yeah, I'm just going to hit this really quick because of time, but also because it is a really quick. It's an $8 DLC for Atari 50. Atari 50 from Digital Eclipse came out a few years ago. This is the Namco DLC. It's got just a handful of games. You get multiple versions of Dig Dug, Galga, Galaxian, Xevious, and Pac-Man. Like most of the Digital Eclipse stuff, you're coming not only for the games, but really for the documentary aspects, both the kind of videos and interviews that they do, which are in this one great, but also kind of the scans and images and commercials and things like that. So if you've enjoyed any of the Atari 50 stuff, if you've enjoyed any Digital Eclipse re-releases, I think, and you have a soft spot for Namco stuff from the early 80s, it's an easy addition. But it also is, it's Pac-Man. It's things you've played so many other places. So unless you're in it for the history pieces, it's probably not necessarily the first thing you're going to jump onto.
I'm sorry. Was this paid DLC or just?
Yeah, it's paid DLC. Yep.
Paid DLC. Okay.
Yeah, it's their third round of DLC. They've done a couple others as well over the past 2 years.
Nice. All right, Game Logic. What have you been doing in MLB The Show 25?
Yeah, I won't speak too long on it again for time. I've been having fun, so went back to it and playing it on the Xbox Series X. I'm still in preseason with the Philadelphia Phillies. Tweaking settings as I always do, coming to a really good balance. I'm really surprised in hitting. I'm playing on competitive veteran level. So I don't know if that's because the Philadelphia Phillies are so good. I suspect that has a little bit to do with it. I still have pitching tuned down to amateur. But I'm getting a really nice balanced baseball game. I just played the Detroit Tigers today, and it was a 3-1 game or 3-0 game. So I think I'm dialing it in pretty well, and I'm having a lot of fun with it.
Nice. All right. And for my final game, and this once again real quick, Pokemon ZA on the Nintendo Switch 2. I've just been plugging away at that when I haven't been playing Battlefield 6 REDSEC. I finally made it to rank A, which is the final rank that you kind of do going through the story mode. Now I'm doing like the big mystery thing that's going on kind of in the background besides going through the that tournament part of it. So I just did A like last night, so I kind of stopped there because I figured if I tried to keep going, I probably have been up all night. But hopefully I'll finish the story. But I don't know. You never know with a Pokemon game because they always like to throw things in at the end there and kind of keep it going. But we'll see what happens afterwards. So that's it for our round robin. Let's jump in to see what's coming out for next week. Got a couple games on November 20th. We got Stalker 2, Heart of Chernobyl. It's come out PlayStation 5. I believe that was just Xbox and PC before exclusive. So it's coming out PS5. And we also have Cleared Hot. I'm not sure which one who put that one in or what that's about.
So I cheated a little this week. The gentlemanly agreement is it's supposed to be titles that are relevant, but you guys cheat every once in a while too and put things in there. So I did it this week. This is one that's near and dear to my heart. It is a isometric helicopter game that you can play with a controller. It doesn't need a flight stick. And then it's not just you, but like you apparently have like a squad going around the map. So you're flying air cover for them. And then you could also pick stuff up. So I am pretty interested in this one.
This looks pretty neat. And last year you talked about like a spiritual successor to Desert Strike.
Megacopter. Yes, that was
right?
Yeah.
But this has a similar kind of isometric view, but with kind of modern visuals and graphics.
Yeah, I think this one's going to be a little more realistic than like fighting pizza monsters and aliens and stuff like you did in Megacopter. I also don't think that this one is going to be like designed deliberately to like be brutal. So I think this is good. One is going to be a little bit more like there was a one I played a few years ago called Hind, I think, which is modeled on the Mi-24 Hind helicopter. Venerable Soviet airframe, and I think this was going to kind of be modeled along those lines. It's a Desert Storm, it's a Desert Strike kind of modeled game.
Yeah, but you can pick things up evidently and fling them at people, which I can see this gameplay.
Yeah, I assume you'll have some missions where you're supposed to like pick some things up. So yeah.
Oh yeah. I love those games back in the day, the Desert Strike, and those are kind of weird because I never really liked the isometric too much until recently. But that was one of the few games that I did like and did enjoy. Also on the November 21st, we have Following Seas. Is that who put that? Was that in you, Game Logic? Was that you or was that DB?
Yeah, I put this one in here. It seems fairly interesting. It seems like a kind of like a career-based, like immersive sim kind of thing almost that is focused on like it's focused on you in a ship and like having a career as a ship driver, navigator. You'll go through several different types of vessels back in this age of sail. So I thought it was pretty interesting just to kind of see where this one goes. Physics wise and graphics wise, it looks beautiful. So it's going to be interesting to see if it gets any traction and just kind of what mini games and metas are associated with it.
Nice. All right, that is it for episode number 4. I forgot the number was 12. Thank you very much. There you go. I had to scroll back up. Thank you, DB and Game Logic, for joining me tonight. Thank you, Here Down Under, Innate, Ghostface Killer, and Retro for joining us in chat. Once again, if you want to join us, we're usually on around 8 o'clock Eastern time ish. Sundays, most of the time also. Please join us. Or if you can't join us live, then you can always check us out on the video on demand later on YouTube or any other kind of podcasts if you want to listen to us and not see us. Thank you, gentlemen. Once again, I am TownMaster99. This has been episode number 412. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next time.